Hi, everybody!
Last month, I weighed in on the supposed olive branch Microsoft has extended to Sony and Nintendo regarding game availability on both PlayStation and Switch going forward. Some said I was a little bit too harsh in my viewpoints, and some said I support exclusives if they're exclusive to PlayStation, just because I'm a so-called Sony pony. What people fail to realize is I really do not support exclusivity in the gaming industry in any way, shape, or form. I just admit that exclusive games are an evil necessity in the gaming industry. They're a necessary evil in the industry because every console manufacturer wants to claim they have the best library in the industry. But guess what? None of them do. They each fulfill their own niche. You want family-friendly games and a plethora of JRPGs? Then Nintendo's got your back. You want games with narratives that'll challenge you? Then Sony's your only option. You want shooters? Then your best bet is to go with an Xbox or a PC. Literally every type of gamer is catered to. You just have to know where to look. However, as the enlightened content creator that I am, I'm here to inform you as to why exclusivity in gaming is actually toxic for the consumer. So why do I say it's actually toxic to the consumer? Look no further than Microsoft gobbling up studios left, right, and center because the majority of the studios under their umbrella can't develop anything that isn't a shooter to save their lives. Almost everything that isn't a pew-pew kill shit game goes off to die in obscurity, if it was touched by any Microsoft studios. Okay, Fable is an exception, but even that series has some rather heavy baggage attached to it thanks to Peter Molyneux. Seriously, if you have some spare time, go to Google and look up how controversial he is. Now I know I'm gonna catch some heat for bashing on Microsoft, so time for me to poke the nest some more. Look at Nintendo. They literally did not bend to consumer will over the eShop for the Nintendo DS, meaning a whole shitload of games are just gone, wiped out of existence either because they never got physical releases, or if they did, they're now so utterly expensive that they're beyond the reach of so many gamers that would actually love to play them, but no longer can do so. That's not to say Sony is entirely clean either, as they have done some shady shit in the past as well. But of the big three, they're actually doing things that are far more consumer-friendly than their competitors. They had intended on shutting down the PS3 and PS Vita storefronts, but didn't do so because consumers begged them to keep them open. That is definitely a more consumer-friendly move. They're also releasing some of their big exclusives on computers after a few years. Now I'll admit, Microsoft is doing some things which are consumer-friendly. They have backwards compatibility all the way back to the original Xbox, and that is a great thing. They also release all of their exclusives, with a few exceptions on PC as well. However, their moves to acquire more and more studios to choke off the supply of games on other platforms is very anti-consumer. Supposedly, Microsoft acquired Bethesda just to block Sony from gaining a timed exclusive in Starfield. If that isn't a move that reeks of desperation and insecurity, I don't know what is. Also, since I haven't dunked on Sony enough, and I know some numpty is going to be in the comments about that, here's one. During the switch from the PS3 to the PS4, Sony didn't have backwards compatibility, meaning consumers had to rebuy games if they got remastered for the then current generation hardware. That is very anti-consumer. So why do I say exclusive games are actually toxic for the consumer? Think of it this way, if you want to experience all of the exclusives you might be interested in, it basically means you have to at minimum own 2 consoles and a computer with sufficient specifications. That means a shit ton of money. Sure, hobbies are always going to cost money, but that ultimately becomes anti-consumer in the long run because people will literally be limited in their choices for games just because of the platform they have a preference towards. Now, I'm not saying the industry needs to pivot into a free-for-all where all games are available on all platforms. That would be utter madness. What I am saying, though, is all games should only ever be timed exclusives. Choosing how long a game is a timed exclusive for is a bit of a sticking point. On average, PlayStation games remain exclusive for around 2 years. For single-player experiences, the ones Nintendo and Sony are best known for, that actually works, since you aren't losing out like you would with a competitive title where later adopters are at a disadvantage. In some cases, that disadvantage will be offset by transferable skills, but in other cases, that won't be viable and new players will just always be at a massive disadvantage. 2 games I can think of off the top of my head where legacy skills are a massive boon are Rainbow Six Siege and the King of Fighters franchise. Why do I bring those up? In the case of Siege, the players who play it now have become super cracked at the game because they've had years of experience, as the game is already 8 years old. The King of Fighters, on the other hand, has been running since 1994, with the core movesets of characters more or less remaining unchanged. This heavily favors the players who haven't touched grass in decades.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude. At least 2, if not more.
At least they're better than the unwashed plebs at Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournaments, I guess.
Ah, yes. Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, apparently among the pantheon of smelliest people on the fucking planet. Right alongside Magic the Gathering players, and of course, everyone's favorite fucking gaming nerd, the Smash community. You know what? I wonder, what would happen if you put Magic the Gathering players, Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, and Smash players in the same room? Ooh, you might want to call that a fucking biohazard zone.
But seriously, single-player games have the luxury of time on their side. They can literally release on other platforms at some point in the future as long as they don't have hardware-specific mechanics that would make them unplayable on other hardware. Another reason forever exclusive games are toxic to consumers comes down to the fact games released on multiple platforms will always make more money than forever exclusive games. It comes down to this: games released on multiple platforms will always have a wider pool of players to pull from. This generally leads to more sales. Overall, removing full exclusivity would be a net positive for the gaming industry as a whole. Why? Because there would be actually more money flowing if this was done, because it would mean people who are interested in games would actually have access to them. This increased access to games would mean companies would ultimately have more capital to work with, and then would potentially be more willing to take risks on more niche projects. I've actually got a video in the works where I'll be tackling why games doubling down on being niche and embracing more out there ideas is a good thing, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. But as a whole, allowing developers to pursue more passion projects and more out there ideas would be a good thing for the industry, as gamers would be catered to as a result. I've now enlightened you on why exclusivity is a toxic aspect of the gaming industry. You're welcome! Until next time, keep blazing that trail.